Hill 352. It sounded like a grid reference to me at first. I didn't even know what it meant. We'd been hearing about the enemy up there. North Vietnamese regulars dug in tight, a whole company, maybe more. There were little shoulders and knobs of higher ground that sat off to the sides that would become part of the same trap. We started up in a long, winding line, and near the top, the shooting started. This was my first taste of what I call a gut-wrenching fear, but it wouldn't be my last. Our platoon had a sergeant running point. Sergeant McRae, I don't remember his first name. He was an older guy who had that rare ability to lead and function in any situation. I saw him rise up, and he moved straight toward them, firing down into a foxhole on his right. I think he thought he was bulletproof. Then he yelled at the rest of us to move up. I don't remember even thinking about it, but I went. Then I saw McRae again, 15 yards ahead, maybe less, breaking the enemy's perimeter like a man pushing through a door. Two of our guys started angling right with McRae, and I went off to the left. I was carrying a shotgun then. At close range, it was brutal. On open ground, it was nothing special, but fighting foxhole to foxhole, it could be devastating. I moved along the top until I saw a hole. Or I saw movement. If a head would rise, I'd squeeze the trigger. Eventually, I reached a bigger hole, covered over with boards and planks, reinforced like a crude bunker. It looked like a command post. I stopped there, almost unsure what to do next. A soldier I barely knew, Morales, a Spanish guy, appeared next to me. I said, "I think there's people down in that hole." He leaned in and peered into the small opening, and casually said, "Let's drop a grenade down there." He pulled the pin and stepped toward a little gap, just big enough for a hand grenade. But right then, something happened that made my stomach turn cold. An RPG round, just the tip, rose up through the opening. For a second, everything froze in my head. Morales didn't hesitate. He just dropped the grenade in there. There was a silence afterward that felt sickening. That night, after we took the hill, it got really dark, and we were using the same foxholes that we cleared for cover. Then, out of nowhere, an enemy soldier popped up from a hole we hadn't found. He stood there for a split second like a man waking from a nightmare, realized where he was, and started running. We all just kinda stared as he disappeared into the dark. It was very strange, like nobody reacted at all. Somewhere out there, he lived, and I always wonder if he made it home with a story no one would believe. What I remember most is how scared they looked when they realized they were being overrun. Those enemy soldiers probably believed the hill could be defended. They probably figured we'd break and slide back down. But once you're inside a perimeter, the psychology flips. The defenders stop being owners and start being trapped men. I saw one who was so terrified he didn't even raise his head. He just pushed his AK up above the lip of the hole and dumped a whole magazine on full auto, straight up into the trees. He didn't aim, just panic. I rolled a grenade into his hole, and that was that. After Hill 352, I was drained. That's when anger can set in. By April, we were making enemy contact constantly. One day I was on point, walking an area I think we'd passed through before. We came to the edge of a clearing and a rice paddy shaped like a peanut, wide on one end, narrow at a berm, then wide again. A little hooch sat down there, empty-looking, quiet. My platoon sergeant, Winters, told me to cross the berm and move left. I crossed, but instead of standing up like I knew they expected, I stayed low in the paddy, using the bank as cover. I moved along the edge until I reached the hooch. Then, like idiots, we clustered up around it. I stepped about 10 feet down the trail and saw a foxhole at the edge. Someone was coming out of it. As he rose out of the hole, I instantly said North Vietnamese, and I'm not sure if it was out loud or in my head. Like slow motion, I can still see the AK-47 coming up with him. He was close. So close I could see details that later came back in dreams. My weapon was pointed away, and his was almost up on me. I remember my eyes going wide with the shock of it. You don't expect an enemy to rise out of the earth right at your feet like a ghost. I knew he was beating me to the draw. I jumped behind the bank as shots snapped past me. Harlan fired. I don't know if he killed him right then, but I popped back up and threw a grenade, and I missed the hole. As I pulled the pin on another, I remember seeing 2 arms up in the air sticking out. I reconsidered for a fraction of a second and tossed the grenade. 2 enemy soldiers died in that hole that day. The day I got hit, we were moving on a wide trail, almost a road, like a bulldozer had cut it through the jungle. And of course, I was on point. We started taking small arms fire, and soon a full-on gunfight was raging. Then, in an instant, my world changed forever. A bullet hit my spine, and my legs went dead. Not numb, dead. I remember looking up and seeing the lieutenant get hit too, and I swear I saw 3 strikes on his side, like the air itself was punching him. He went down and the attack collapsed right there. Harlan killed the man who shot me. They lifted me in a poncho like a sack and carried me back while the fight faded behind us. What seemed like hours later, a medevac helicopter came in and took me and the lieutenant out of the Vietnam War. From there, it became a chain of hospitals and surgeries, mostly a blur to me. Slowly, I got most of it back, except my left leg from the knee down. I wore a brace for years, but I could move, and that's more than a lot of guys. So I am fortunate. I served with a light infantry company made up mostly of draftees, ordinary men pulled from ordinary lives, thrown into an extraordinary place. We spent a year walking the boonies trying to find the enemy. No rear area comforts, no long breaks. Mostly heat, wet, hunger, fear, and boredom that could turn into chaos in half a second. And I'm proud of that company. I'm proud because those men did their jobs when it mattered. I'm proud because some of them did things that should have gotten them killed and somehow didn't. Others did get killed, and they live on in our thoughts and prayers.
Leave it all behind. Let it all go. It's not worth it anymore. You can't convince them to change their minds.
Vietnam was a place where young men learned what they are capable of, good and bad. And then you have to spend the rest of your years figuring out what to do with that knowledge.